My name is Valerie Lemiuex. I'm the General Director at the Catherine Donnelly Foundation. The Catherine Donnelly Foundation is a national Canadian foundation that focuses on the environment, housing, and adult education for social change. We've been granting since 2005, and when we first began, we were a fairly traditional foundation in that we provided one-year project grants in our areas of priority. We did that for a few years, and then started to do some evaluation and wondered, were we getting the impact that we wanted to see? Were we meeting our mission and mandate? And part of the conversation centered around, well, although we had been funding really wonderful projects, and they certainly were meeting their targets, we didn't feel we were getting at the long-term systems change that we wanted to get at. So we began examining our granting practice and realized that if we wanted to really engage in long-term systems change, then we had to go a lot deeper. We started thinking, well, what could we do to ensure that we were meeting our mandate, to ensure that we were getting at long-term system change within our three granting priorities. And so we started by engaging in a longer-term partnership with two environmental organizations that were looking at really sort of big systems change ideas, and we asked them to suggest what those ideas might be. And we worked, we formed a steering committee, and we had a sort of a deeper relationship, and certainly had a long-term, larger grant process around working with them. Then our next experiment was really around thinking about how could we change the circumstances around youth homelessness. So we consulted with a number of youth serving agencies, brought in some research components, some other funders to think about what could we do together to change, to disrupt the system. And what emerged then was this coalition of youth serving organizations that had an aim to prevent and end youth homelessness. And we served on that steering committee, and we continue to do so today. So having had these two previous experiences through our environment and then our housing granting priorities, we took a look at our adult ed area of focus, and that really, our adult ed is really adult ed for social change, and we're really interested in encouraging civic engagement, to giving voice to those that are generally left out of the conversation, to work with those that are left on the margins, that don't have a space to have their voice heard. And so when we started thinking about, well, what might that look like? How could we engage in something long-term around that? We again went through a consultative process, brought together people from across the country that were adult educators, or they might be community activists, some were academics. We sat together and began to form a plan of how we might engage in a long-term systems change idea. But this time it was a little bit different, because when we formed a steering committee, yes, again, we were a member of that steering committee, but we never felt we were leading the program. In fact, it was those that we recruited, members of the steering committee from the constituencies that we wished to serve. They came to us with the issues that were important to their areas and regions, and they started leading the development of what it was that they felt was needed in order to engage in the program. And this was somewhat uncomfortable for us as a funder. When you engage in social change, you have to be prepared to disrupt systems. And in disrupting systems, it means you have to question your own approach and values, and you have to actually relinquish power. And as funders, there is always a power imbalance. I mean, we're aware of that. But how do you get past that? How do you truly engage in a participatory grant-making process where you're part of the process, but you're not leading it, and you're certainly not controlling it? And that can be really scary. And that can be a real challenge. And getting your board, I mean, as a staff person, you can be out and you can be engaging in the work more directly, but how do you bring your board along as well? Certainly they were interested in supporting social change, but were they prepared to relinquish control, really, of the money in the end? Were we going to allow, those that were closest to the ground, most engaged in the issue, were they going to be making the decisions? And what would that look like? I have to say, although there was some discomfort at the time, I would say that one of the learnings is that that's okay. If you have a fully formed plan and you think everything's going to go to plan, you're going to find yourself fairly quickly disillusioned. I think what's most important is when you allow yourself the space to be uncomfortable, when you recognize that maybe things aren't going to work out exactly how you thought, but they might be something even more beautiful.